Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling one of the absolute most demoralizing situations you can face as a parent, when you report bullying and the principal just goes completely silent. You know, you did everything right. You reported it, you followed up, you waited patiently, and still, nothing. It's not outright hostility, it's just silence. And honestly, it leaves you wondering if you're overreacting or if they literally just don't care.
So, we really need to ask ourselves, what actually happens when the principal ignores you? Because here's the thing. While they stay quiet, your child still has to go to school every single day. The environment hasn't changed for them at all, even if the adults in charge have just completely stopped communicating. It's an incredibly isolating place to be for both you and your kid. But the reassuring reality we're going to uncover today is that a non-responsive principal is never the final word. There is a precise, mechanical path forward that takes the burden right off your shoulders and forces action.
Here's our quick roadmap for This Explainer. We're going to cover 1. Why principals go quiet, 2. The power of documentation, 3. The escalation path, 4. Mistakes to avoid, and 5. When to move faster.
Let's jump right into Section 1. Why principals go quiet.
It's incredibly easy to assume silence means they're against you, right? But there is actually a hidden institutional psychology at play here. Often, your complaint was never formally logged simply because it was just a verbal conversation or a quick phone call. In the bureaucratic mind of a school administrator, if it isn't on paper, there's basically no formal complaint to answer. Administrators are constantly performing this massive balancing act, and sometimes they're just hoping the situation will magically resolve itself without them having to step in. But the deeper truth, it's about institutional risk aversion. When they avoid paperwork, they create less liability for the school district. Combine that with a genuine lack of administrative capacity. A lot of principals are just drowning in daily operations, and your verbal concern easily gets pushed to the absolute bottom of the pile. Understanding this brings us to the most critical realization. The parent just hasn't applied enough written pressure yet. A single meeting or a frustrated voicemail, that simply does not generate enough institutional friction to force the machinery of a school district to actually move.
That brings us perfectly to Section 2, the power of documentation.
Think of a verbal concern, like breath in the cold air. It just vanishes, leaving no paper trail, and ultimately, it's super easy to ignore. It traps you in this endless, frustrating game of he said, she said, with zero accountability. But a formal written complaint, that's a physical lock. It permanently secures your dates and your facts. Making this shift forces a profound psychological change on the school's end. Why? Because a written document legally and procedurally requires a response. Suddenly, the school administrator is staring at an established record of institutional risk. If a parent writes down that their child is unsafe and the principal ignores that written document, the liability shifts entirely onto their shoulders. Seriously, if you've been relying on phone calls, drop the phone. You have to shift your strategy today.
Okay, let's look at how to actually do that in Section 3, the escalation path. This timeline right here is your roadmap to taking back control. We're moving from giving the principal one last chance on day 1 to involving the superintendent on day 5 and finally escalating to the state by day 15. The absolute beauty of this specific 1-5-15 sequence is that it methodically removes the district's ability to claim ignorance. You aren't being hostile, you're simply building an undeniable timeline of non-responsiveness. By escalating at these exact, predictable intervals, you transition from being seen as just a frustrated parent to a highly structured advocate. You know, the school bureaucracy relies on you getting tired and giving up. This timeline proves, without a doubt, that you won't. So step 1 is to send a written summary to the principal outlining all your past contacts, explicitly using the word bullying and establishing a firm 5-school-day deadline for a response. Even if you've already talked to the principal 5 times, send this email today to cement the past. Summarize everything chronologically. Say something like, on Tuesday, we spoke about this incident. On Thursday, I left a voicemail about that. Now, here is a crucial discovery. You must explicitly use the word bullying. That is not just a descriptive word. It is literally a legal magic word that triggers specific policy obligations and timelines that the school absolutely cannot bypass. Finally, explicitly state that you expect a written response within 5 school days. You're giving them one final, highly documented opportunity to just do their job.
Okay, so what if those 5 days pass and crickets? You execute step 2 by emailing the superintendent directly by name. Keep all emotion out of it. Let the documented pattern of the principal's non-response be the star of the show. Attach that day 1 email you sent to prove you tried to handle it at the building level first. And here is a strategic masterstroke. If your child has an IEP or a 504 plan, absolutely, 100%,
copy the special education director. By crossing departmental lines, you create interdepartmental visibility and massive liability. Suddenly, the superintendent knows, the special ed department knows, and the board representative knows. Every single person you copy is one more professional whose license or job is on the line if they choose to ignore a documented safety issue.
Let's shift gears to Section 4, Mistakes to Avoid. Look, it is incredibly tempting to vent on the phone or attack a principal's character when you are desperately trying to protect your child. We totally get it. But you have to resist that human urge, because emotion is the enemy of strategy right now. If you make personal attacks, you literally hand the district the exact excuse they need to label you as an angry, unreasonable parent and just dismiss your completely valid complaint. Stick strictly to the facts and the dates. Also, don't jump straight to the media or the school board on day one. If you follow the proper chain of command, you firmly secure your position as the reasonable, methodical party. And never, ever stop pushing after just one email. Assume they won't reply and proactively build your follow-up deadlines right into your personal calendar so you never lose momentum.
Now, there are exceptions. Here is Section 5, When to Move Faster.
There are moments when the timeline goes entirely out the window. We need to be fiercely protective here. If there's immediate physical danger, or if your child is expressing thoughts of hopelessness or self-harm, stop the school clock entirely and get medical or crisis help first. The school's accountability runs in a parallel path to your child's immediate health and safety. Always, always prioritize health. Also, if the bullying targets a protected characteristic, like race, religion, sex, or disability, you bypass the waiting periods and involve state or federal civil rights agencies on day one. And what if the principal ever tries to intimidate you or pressure you to drop your escalation? You document that exact pressure in an email and send it straight to the superintendent. You never let them bully you into silence.
Which brings us to our final section, conclusion and next steps.
As we start to wrap up this explainer, there is one really profound concept I want to make sure we internalize. Pleasantness is not accountability. Never forget that a principal who gives you vague, polite reassurances without documented outcomes is still failing to respond adequately to your child's safety. Just because they nod empathetically and smile at you in the pickup line does not mean the issue is actively being resolved. Do not confuse the absence of conflict with actual structural resolution. If they will not put their actions in writing, they aren't taking action at all. To empower yourself right now, today, you can use the Student Protection Readiness Checklist, available at the link right there on screen, to instantly audit your paper trail. It's a fantastic, completely free tool to see exactly what documentation you currently have and, more importantly, what critical pieces you're missing. Alternatively, you can book a free consultation with Jerry Green using the Calendly link provided to build an undeniable, customized escalation strategy. These tools are designed to take the guesswork out of the whole process and help you structure your next move deliberately and effectively. I'm going to leave you with this one final provocative thought to consider as you sit down to draft your documentation today. If your child's school completely refuses to put their response in writing, what exactly are they trying not to say? Let that sink in for a second. Your silence won't protect your child, but your documentation absolutely will. Start writing those emails, stick rigorously to your timelines, and force the accountability your child deserves. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. You got this.